All right. Hello, hello. Let me lower myself in the chair a little bit. Jesus, I'm so high now. All right, here we are. Okay, good. Looks like we're good. Hi, live from Denver. It's Friday night. Oh my God, have I been stressed this afternoon? But good, perfect timing, excellent. Getting the sound sorted out and things has been very stressful. Only because I'm going to admit that it's a thing that I don't really fully grok or totally understand. Like you put the chords in here and here, and if it doesn't work, I'm like, okay, now I'm screwed. And it's just varying degrees of YouTube videos and Quora forums and and other places trying to sort it out. Anyway, it can get very, very stressful because I love coming on live with you guys and doing this show and being here with my beautiful wife, Melissa.
Hello.
And so I'm just you gotta rant about this stuff. Hey, all the critics and usual suspects in the comments. So happy to have you guys here. Just make sure. Yeah, we're all good. Okay. Okay. We got some things to go over. I think you guys are going to enjoy tonight's show. We got some stuff to talk about. How has the week been for you from your perspective?
Not too bad.
Yeah.
I mean, just been working and took my uncle out for his 60th birthday last night. He turned 60, so.
Wow. 60.
Yeah, he's getting up there, but not too old. But let's see, what else did I do this week? That's about it. Been doing physical therapy for my arm and my shoulders because I have this weird pain right here. It's starting to get better, so that's good.
Excellent.
Yeah, it hasn't been a real busy week, so.
All right. Well, yes. And yes, Stuart, this is a Lego Batman shirt. Yes, that is exactly what it is. Thank you. Yes, it's been it's that time of year when there's kind of stress in the air. There's been channel stuff, there's been personal stuff, this med working maybe not as good as it should be. Maybe we should try this med, that kind of stuff. And anyway, that kind of thing. And yes, I agree. She looks gorgeous tonight.
Thank you.
Yes, she does.
Leslie and Henny, thank you.
Yes. Of course, I tend to think you look gorgeous anytime.
Aww.
I do. It's true. But yeah, there's degrees.
There's degrees.
There's a spectrum.
There's first thing in the morning versus
versus
this.
Versus this. Exactly. All right. So let's see. Let's do our usual beginning of the show stuff that we have, because we do have some Snuggles, Not Struggles cam. But did you have a quote of the week for us?
I sure do. Let's see here. All right. Success is not final. Failure is not fatal. It is the courage to continue that counts. And that's Winston Churchill. So, of course, he said something smart.
I love how I will tell you what the show is kind of about, and then you will go dig up a quote that is so perfect for me and for what I want to talk about with the show. Yeah. And that quote is perfect, because it's exactly the point of the show here tonight, is that, in the shadow of the darkest hour, it really does look like shit sucks.
Yeah.
To be blunt.
Yeah, when you have a failure, it's like, oh my God, I never want to try again. Everything sucks.
Yeah. And I have certainly felt that way a number of times over the years when it comes to the fight against cults and against cultic influence and coercive control and things like that. It's not a war that you win for any period of time. You have victories over individual groups or individual predators, but this is that kind of war. It's like cops. There's no end to the crime. It's not like you're going to go have a career and by the end of it,
all the crime is gone.
Yeah, there's no more crime, right? I mean, wouldn't that be something? But if you can imagine a cop thinking that way, you can understand my dilemmas over the years with letting go of that whole save the world thing, where that actually was the idea that I had, is that somehow by the end of my life, this life, I would see a significant, if not total, change in our entire culture. And that's not how this works at all.
Nope.
And there's a point where you kind of have to come to an acceptance of that. And I think for me at least, and I can't believe for a second that I'm the only idealist, who came out of a cult still having ideals. I mean, that's just not even remotely true. So it must be that this particular thing is part of that whole recovery, is kind of coming down off the clouds a little bit from that, very heady, wonderful place to be, where you think you are having effects that go far, far beyond what you're actually going to even be, what is even realistically possible. Now, there is something to be said here, though, about this exact thing, because there was a lot of difficulty with accepting that. Actually, I realized, though, that I'm totally skipping the line.
Yeah, you're forgetting some Benson cam.
I am. And I'm so eager to get into this stuff. So let's take a look at our Snuggles, Not Struggles cam.
All right.
Yeah, stop kicking me under the table.
I'm not. Oh, you're just joking. Okay.
Yes, I am.
I was like, maybe Benson's doing something.
Here is our Snuggles, Not Struggles cam for the week.
He's so cute.
Yes, he is. He has been particularly cute this week, in fact, because he's... something's changing with Benson and us lately, where he's becoming less obstinate, more cooperative, but not in a broken way, in a more cooperative way. And I think he's kind of coming into accepting us as his permanent home, like at a real level at this point. And he's kind of, I don't know how to describe it, except that it feels like he looks at us differently.
Yeah, and he's more affectionate.
Yeah. Yeah. And as a rescue, I think that's an important thing to be aware of and note and watch for, because clearly, our little Benson had trust issues, and we've had him for a little over a year now. Yeah. What has it been? About 15 months?
Something like that. Yeah.
At this point. And so I think he's really coming into accepting us. And he's just turned 4, and I think I am. I mean, he certainly likes to follow me around a lot and sit in my seat. He does do that. But anyway, it's been a process. It's been a real interesting process and a learning one for me, because I think that animals and us, I don't really see lots and lots of differences in some significant ways. And it's been really interesting to me over the last many years, watching and learning more about animals and their emotional life, and the fact that emotions do play out there.
Yes,
maybe not, so. Right?
Yeah.
Maybe not as rich or as complex.
Complicated, yeah.
But still, it's there. You can clearly see it manifests. And all the thinking about emotions that I do all the time and all that, and looking at, well, of course, why would it be a individually human thing? Of course it wouldn't be, that kind of thing. So it really does, it introduces all kinds of interesting thinking.
Oh yeah. And he lets us know when he's having feelings. If he's mad, well, he doesn't really get mad, but he gets irritated with you when you don't do what he wants and growls at you.
Yeah.
At you. Like, I want to play.
Yeah, exactly. Exactly. Bud123, I'm not sure. I said at one point that I was never going to go to get a degree at all. And then the opportunity presented itself and I jumped. Should the opportunity present itself for me to go do a doctorate? Yes, I would very much be interested in that.
I'll do a doctorate if somebody pays for it for me.
Well, like I said, if the opportunity presents itself, that could happen, and then it could happen in a realistic way, like it did for my master's, then yes, right? And have I talked about opportunities like that with some people? Yes, I have. So could something happen in the future? Yes, it could. So we'll see. We'll see how that goes. But no immediate plans, and nothing in the immediate
Near
future
yeah.
plan for that. No.
Oh God, that would be good
Yeah.
though. I'd love it to just be doctor. That'd be cool.
Yeah, I would definitely like PhD after my name. That would be kind of awesome.
Dr. Shelton.
That'd be kind of awesome. Yeah. And I do have ideas of how to get there if I were to do a doctorate program. So I think that'd be kind of fun. Yeah, good point, Henny. That's right. Yeah. So let's talk about winning the fight against cults. I have two things I wanted to talk about today. One you know about, one you don't. Okay, so first off, we'll say that this IAS protest and Apostate Alex and PTS for Life, Jeff, and everybody else who was part of that, they've really been the sort of figureheads of this, and I really don't know. It's not like we have a roster of all the people, at least, we're not publishing it for what hopefully are obvious reasons, of all the people who went and did that. And it really, really pumped me. It really excited me, to see it being done right. I've said this a lot. I'm going to keep saying it because I think it needs to keep being said, across my videos and across the land of SPTV, I suppose, that there's a right way to do protesting, and there's a way to do it that is just being an asshole, and there's ways to do it where you're actually going to get something effective done. And this way that it was run and done and organized in the UK was exactly, I'm really happy about it because it's all the ways I've said to do it. And that's exactly what Alex was paying attention to. That was his way of doing it. He didn't consult with me on how to do it. He just did it. And how he did it was perfect. And I've thought so highly of him, of his efforts, and it was honestly rejuvenating for me because, I don't know. Now we're going to the other part of this, right? Been doing this for 10 years now. This YouTube thing, this ex-cult thing, this recovery thing, and that's a long time to do anything.
Yeah.
It's a long time, right? I haven't even been married that long.
No.
Been working on this stuff. And there's a certain point where, of course, it's no longer about me. It's about helping other people and consulting and working with people and educating people. And it goes past my own catharsis or recovery. There's always that bit in this. But I got a chance today or yesterday thinking about this and looking at the history of cults in America and looking at where we've gotten to. And there have been a lot of times in the last 10 years when I've been really down and I have been really depressed and really thinking with surety that this fight wasn't going anywhere and that why bother anyway, and all of it's an endless fight anyway, and who cares, and it doesn't even matter, and everything you can think I've thought. I am positive on the spectrum of failure and awfulness, right? And at the same time, I've had lots and lots of wins and highs and inspirational moments and all that too, of course. Otherwise, I wouldn't keep doing this. But then there comes a point when you kind of have to come out of the emotions of it and just kind of actually step back and look at where are we at? What are we doing? And somebody asked me a question on my Q&A show, actually, which you'll see this weekend. Because it's pre-recorded, I already did it. You'll see me address this, where somebody asked me a question that really made me look at where we are at with Scientology now and with cults now. And as I've been saying for months, I think, the exposure, the awareness of this has never been higher. And that matters when it comes to, say, criminal prosecution of these groups. It matters when it comes to exposés and documentaries being made about them, because nobody makes documentaries and exposés unless they think somebody's going to watch them. And there's been this affluence of it. There's been this explosion of cult
I just
work.
saw another series or show that came out. I'm trying to remember what cult it was about, but just keep seeing them all the time. New documentaries about new cults or whatever.
That's right. It's a genre. It's now a subgenre. It's not even a hyperbole. Or just seeing something I want to be there. It's true. It's an actual now created subgenre of the true crime genre as far as podcasts, as far as stories go, things like that. Now it's a thing. And that's exactly why I got into this in the first place, was to help make that happen. And somehow I know, because there have been so few voices in this space for 10 years, 20 years, because there's people older than me doing this too, but there's been so few of us, and now the explosions happened, that it's like, okay, good. You can, at first, it's a little alarming and a little concerning, and there's all these voices, and there's disparate voices, and some of them don't like you, and other ones say things that you definitely don't agree with, and there's all these issues. And you go, okay, more voices. Yes, I want this, but you're kind of, but now it's like, no, this is exactly what we always wanted, right? This is exactly what we always wanted, right? Large scale, take it to the next level of awareness, kind of popularity of this, or interest, we could say, in this. And that's what we now have. And that's a big, big deal. That's not a small deal. That's why we can now talk with some degree of certainty about predatory narcissists and abusers and cult leaders and coercive control, and we can talk about gaslighting, and we can talk about these terms that are misused all over the place, and yet we can still talk about them, whereas 10 years ago nobody knew what the hell this stuff was. Gaslight, that's some old movie. Whatever,
yeah,
right?
Now that term is everywhere.
Yeah, narcissist, isn't that some Greek mythology thing? I don't know what that is, right? And it's like we haven't really had this as clearly out there in the zeitgeist, you could say. So I think that's an important thing to kind of bookmark here, right? As a milestone acknowledged, as a point that is irrefutable now, is it's at a whole new level. Concurrent with that comes the depowerment of the cults, because the whole way, the entire operation, whether it's a religious cult, a multi-level marketing scheme, a large group awareness training, whatever category of coercive control it's sitting in as far as an activity goes, they all rely on deceiving you. They all rely on having red flags that you're going to ignore, because you're not going to know what you're looking at. You're not going to recognize what you're seeing. When you now know about these things and these little bells go off, now you're like, hey, wait a minute. I saw something about this. I heard something about this. This isn't, wait a minute. This is going to go in a direction I don't want it going in. Right? They can't get away with that crap as easily now with their cult recruitment and retention as they used to be able to. And that's progress. And we have to acknowledge that progress. And I think that's really important. And one of the ways that this came home to me this week was, and I'm going to waffle my way through this story, because I'm going to tell you guys about something you don't know anything about. And that is something that happened in my non-camera personal life having to do with cults. It's not very often that in my day-to-day I run into or am directly faced by a cult. Mm-hmm. I live and work from home. I, don't get out much. And when I do, it's social activities and friends and stuff like that, right? I'm not part of any club or group or activity other than the secular hub. And so imagine my surprise when a cult just kind of came right into my life, and people were locally calling me and asking me about this group. And this group, and I don't really feel any reason why I shouldn't talk about this, because it took me a week and a half of research and work, including contacting ex-members and really going deep on this, to find that there's a group called Radical Honesty that is an absolute cult, right? Full on pseudoscientific psychotherapy cult. And psychotherapy cults are always the most disturbing to me because those are the ones where you have a trained, even licensed therapist go completely off the rails and start developing their own techniques or combinations of actual psychological or clinical therapy modalities. And they'll mix these up in a hodgepodge with their own bullshit and with religion and other stuff. And they will come up with their own new, amazing techniques and amazing book. And here's this book, and here's these workshops, and here's these weekend retreats, and here's all these week-long seminars, and you can come visit at the house, and we'll go on a trip to Greece, and we'll spend a week being radically honest, right? And we're going to train you and teach you in this, wonderful therapeutic thing. Never mind, right, that the guy who wrote the book on this, Brad Blanston, is not a licensed psychotherapist because he kept wanting to sleep with his patients. So they took that away from him. And there is... there's a whole story going on there, right? And all I want to talk about is the fact that this guy came up with techniques which were manipulative and psychologically damaging by doing everything I just described to you. And I'm probably in the future, if the opportunity presents, as this rolls out and people start healing from this, maybe future shows we can take a deeper dive into radical honesty. But if it's ever come across your plate, it's been around since 1993, and it was infiltrating a place with its meetups, with its free introductory services, you could say, right? Their equivalent of a personality test is, let's have a meetup and have everybody come and find out what radical honesty is and how it's going to change your life and revolutionize your thinking and your relationships and make everything so much better for you. Right? And we're going to do this at a meetup level.
Radical honesty. I'm pretty sure that's not going to make your relationships better.
Yeah.
Because
it doesn't.
Some of the things that go on in here don't need to come out of here.
Exactly. And it's a very extreme form of social discourse where you just kind of, whatever's going on in your inner monologue, you get to just say it. And there's a lot of reasons why that's a bad idea. I mean, the idea that being honest is a good thing to do, sure, of course, we all agree with that. But 100% total honesty at all times with everybody and going out of your way to say stuff to people that maybe they don't want to hear.
Dangerous if you're in an abusive relationship already and then you say the wrong thing to an abuser.
Bingo, right? We are not all cut from the same mold, and we are not all the same people, and we don't all respond the same way to things. And this is where groups like this, completely go off the rails. So, anyway, my point was that briefing the people who needed to be briefed about that and informing them about what was going on was not that hard. And obviously I know how to talk about this stuff and what I'm looking at and what I'm doing. That's kind of the point, is it should be easy. And it is. I mean, at first I was looking at the group and there were all these red flags, but once I actually started contacting some former members and really diving deep into it and finding out, by the way, that this guy had even cribbed Hubbard. There's reference on the Radical Honesty website, if you want to look it up, to the awful reactive mind, your horrendous reactive mind that you have. Yeah, he was cribbing from Hubbard, and that's not just like one example. I mean, there were others. So, right. We got him kicked out of that, and they're no longer able to hold, or they won't be holding those meetups. And that's a victory for me. That's something I was really super nervous about getting involved in, looking into all that stuff. You have all that real world nervousness that comes on. I can be fairly, I don't want to say opinionated. I don't feel I'm opinionated, but I can I don't know. You're smiling. Maybe I'm opinionated.
He's opinionated.
Okay, I'm opinionated. Anyway, maybe I look more opinionated than or sure about that than I am in on camera here than maybe I am in real life. I don't know. Suddenly I'm in doubt about all of that. But anyway, I was nervous about this whole thing, and but it was a challenge, and challenge accepted, and here we go, right? And when people are saying, "Hey, is this thing a cult?" You know, you really got to go look in and see, and yeah. Avoid that stuff like the plague, but getting it out of my local space and doing that with ease, and people understanding what I was kind of like, the ground had been laid, and so going in and talking about cults and cult leaders and psychological nonsense and pseudo therapeutic cults and stuff like that. Like, this is the kind of stuff that 15, 20 years ago people would have been like, "What are you talking about?" Like, they just wouldn't have been able to conceptualize this in the general public. I mean, there were psychotherapeutic cults going on in the 60s, 70s, and 80s.
Oh, yeah, for sure.
Right? Primal Scream was one. I wrote a whole paper about it. It was fascinating learning this stuff, right? Synanon was another example of this in the 60s.
Or what was
Drug
that
rehab.
one where the rebirthing or whatever?
Yeah. Oh, yeah. That was I think that was... what was that called?
Yeah.
It wasn't rebirthing, but it was like
that was
born.
the idea.
Yeah, it was like you were being born again and crap. I mean, these like heavy somatic, like, let's regress you and recreate your travel down the birth canal, and we're gonna resolve all your childhood trauma this way.
Supposed to forget that for a reason.
Oh, it's just laughably horrible, right? But people will go for this because desperate people are desperate, and they want resolutions to their problems, Okay, so I wanted to share that stuff with you about the radical honesty thing, and about the fact that, that's like, hey, if we got to deal with it in real life, let's deal with it in real life. If we have to call it out on video, if we have to write books about it, if we have to get articles out there, if we have to appear on news to talk about this and get awareness out there, then let's do it. We are doing it. And as a result of that, we are seeing real change. And I wanted to kind of point out and highlight to y'all some of the changes over history, over time, that lead me to feel so happy about this tonight. Because I haven't, I go up and down a lot. I don't know. Maybe I think it's a lot, but I go up and down on this, like, this like, we're winning, and then it's like, no, we're not.
Yeah,
no, we're not. No, we're not. Nah. It's all horrible. No, it's not. We're not winning, right? So let me tell you, in the big picture, we really, really are. Okay, now let's harken back a few decades, because I time or look at the war, as starting in 1978.
Okay.
Jim Jones, right? Jonestown, Guyana. Mm-hmm. I believe that was 78. And yes, Chris Wood, radical honesty is just an excuse to have no filter, and much worse. It goes worse than that. There are techniques involved, and mantras, and very psychologically manipulative, introverting, and traumatizing methodologies used to reinforce why my honesty is acceptable, and your offenses and your reasons why you don't want to hear it, or the effects I'm creating in you, don't matter, and who cares, and it's not a big deal, right? As long as I get to be honest, you get to deal with it. So that's not so cool. Okay, and it goes deeper, and there's more, but that's because there's sexual components, and there's predation, and there's other stuff going on with this, because of the way the techniques are resolved, and because of who the guy Brad, who started the whole thing, he's the one who twisted it all into this weird sex thing, and it's got disturbing aspects to it. So that's why I was glad to get that out of here.
I'm glad you did.
Okay, now getting back to what I was talking about with Jonestown. Okay, so I date that. Now, it's not that Jonestown or Jim Jones is the first cult that ever existed by any stretch of the imagination, but it was first one I know of where there were worldwide headlines over a mass murder of over 1,000 people as a direct result of a cult leader telling them to kill themselves. And that's harsh, and that's not that all those people there did do that. Many did, but some of them had to be killed, right, by the guards and people around there. It wasn't all just mass self-ending. But it was so horrifying, so unbelievable. It was the 9/11 of cults.
Right.
Right? It was the wake-up call to the world. It was the, oh my God, what is this? This is something that's actually dangerous. These aren't kooky people on the street corners. This is life and death. That's what happened here? How could this be? Now, this is predated by the Cold War and the whole brainwashing thing, right? The Manchurian Candidate, paranoia about that. But that really folded into the Cold War Russia scare more so than it was a cult thing. Nobody was connecting that with cults.
They thought the CIA was doing it or something. Yeah.
Exactly, right? Or the CIA was mad at work trying to figure out how to do it and how to undo it to protect our boys and all that. I mean, there were so many lies told during that whole period by every side when it came to MK Ultra and all that. I mean, it just gets real ugly really fast. I ceased thinking about America as the good guys when it came to this kind of stuff a long time ago, just so we're all clear on that, right? You know, I'm an American. I'm proud to be an American, but this country's done some nasty crap.
Yeah, we have.
And so anyway, moving out of that Cold War period, right, into the Jim Jones thing. So here's this cult, and it's like, what? And suddenly academia is starting a war over the right of these groups to exist versus the manipulative, abusive behavior and even death that they can bring, right? And there's a lot of people who are watching their kids in the 60s and 70s join up in groups like the Moonies, like Scientology. They're freaking out because their kids are coming home looking insane and talking insane, if they're coming home at all. Sometimes they wouldn't even continue talking to their parents. And it wasn't just Scientology. Like a ton of these groups were springing up all over the place. A lot of them sex cults, but psychotherapy cults, religious cults, business cults, all of it. But the awareness of this was suddenly on the front page of every newspaper in the world. And like 9/11, you had your immediate overreaction to that, which was the deprogramming and the cult, and like I said, the cult wars. We've talked about the academia, how there's academics who stand on the side of these groups and fight for their rights, and there's academics mostly on the psychology end of things who recognize the damage and abuse that they bring and fight against that. And that's, you know, the Rachel Bernsteins of the world and the Hugh, oh God, how am I forgetting Hugh's last name? Hugh Urban. Not Keith Urban, Hugh Urban. That's how I remember it. Hugh Urban, right? And John Atack and Rod Dubrow Marshall, my professor, and his wife Linda, and other academics who have taken these cults on head on. And Jolyon West was one. He flat out took on Scientology and other cults. So this academic war started in the 70s and has been carrying on since then. The deprogramming was sort of the societal overreaction to the whole thing, and that craziness went through the rest of the 70s and 80s into the 90s before people started calming down and realizing that they were being just as bad as the cults, and they needed to stop doing that because it wasn't helpful. It was only working half the time. Literally 50% of the deprogramming that happened in the 80s, that's your success rate, is 50% of it. Mm-hmm. Most of the time they were, just as liable to go back to the cult. And if you're kidnapping people and abusing them, then of course they will. The cult is still their safe space. And you just made it worse, right, by doing all that crap to them. So that was rejected. And we came into the 90s, and there was the Cult Awareness Network until that got taken over by Scientology. And but media started paying more rational, real attention to these cultic groups. David Miscavige gets on Nightline, for example. Time Magazine, Cult of Greed cover story, 1991. Moving on through, the news and infotainment of the 90s, and there were cults sprinkled here and there being talked about. And then we come into the 2000s, and we have, at least with Scientology, we have the internet, social media, and anonymous. And it was a 1, 2, 3, boom, 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 and Scientology went down. And obviously they're still around, but I'm telling you that it was the perfect timing, and it was the perfect response. The whole anonymous hacktivist group taking on and protesting Scientology worldwide, just put the spotlight on them. And again, this is after, I say spotlight, right after, 1998, the Catholic Church exposures. So there's a timeline here of more and more and more awareness. And after Anonymous, Scientology was seen to be, right, not the fierce, litigious beast that it was back in the 80s and 90s when they legit had more members and more power. You see, they've been shrinking the whole time, but they keep putting on a show that they're not, and people keep believing them, right? I mean, even I in the cult did, until you actually see the graphs and look at the numbers and go, holy shit. Right? That was a wake-up call for me when I was still in, we're failing. We keep talking at these events about how we're winning, but these numbers clearly show we are not. Right? That's how I know how few Scientologists there are, because those numbers told it to me. And that was really interesting, And so now, but in the public eye, documentaries start coming out. Right. And we see this wave of them. And it wasn't even, I don't even know. I mean, I've been so hyper aware of Scientology this whole time that I can't objectively say whether it was Scientology that started it. I don't think so. I've been aware of these milestones in Scientology's exposure and how those have coincided with other exposures of other cults similar at the same time. Because it's not just Scientology that was blown into the public eye with Going Clear and Scientology in the Aftermath. You also have all those reality shows, right? About the multiple wives, the polygamy cults.
Oh God, yeah,
and you have
all the
shiny
15,
hat. You have the
16,
Duggars,
17, 25, whatever and counting.
Right. Well, see, here's the interesting thing, right? You have your 19 and counting, 21 and counting, which then gets canceled in the face of the truth coming out. And then come the documentaries, right?
Now
we have
books.
Shiny Happy People, etc., right? And now the books as well. The Duggar kids are now writing books. The first gen of these things often can't survive the second gen and the exposure of it. And we're seeing that with Scientology as well, although it's not second gen. It's us, third, fourth, fifth gens even. But this is how this rolls out. This is how this stuff has been playing out, and due to these changes in public perception and awareness, we are seeing cults having a harder time of it in the traditional sense. What we are not seeing people get a grip on yet. They just don't have any clue yet, really. They some people kind of do, and some people think they do, but it's not really totally yet realized how destructive the online cult activity is. Yeah. People haven't quite grokked that yet. Some of it's there. We talk about the teal swan. We talk about the low-hanging fruit, the teal swans and Stefan Molyneux's and, the internet personalities. But when you look at something like QAnon and how that grew out of 4chan into this, international conspiracy theory that just is the mother of all conspiracy theories. It just accepts all others into it and just keeps growing. It's like this monster. When you look at all the various aspects of the QAnon conspiracy with the Pizzagate and the child pedophile rings and, the Alex Jones stuff. And then you go over to the lizard people and David Icke's crap, right? I mean, I don't think that societally we are anywhere near yet gauging or looking back and seeing yet. We're still in it. And I don't think we yet see what we're in. We see dangers with social media. We've seen some documentaries about it. We understand statistically that kids don't, maybe shouldn't be spending 24/7 online, especially young women. We know this from certain self-harm statistics, et cetera, but it hasn't really sunk in yet. It's only kind of in the titillating information news. Wow, that's really interesting. And people kind of are rooting a little bit for social media companies to decline and fall. But I don't think they really totally get yet what was done to them by those companies and what's still being done to them by those companies, right? And yes, the influencer thing has shades of that, right? The thing is, there are always influencers. There always have been.
Oh, yeah.
We call them celebrities. We call them authors. We call them singers. We call them writers, right? We call them leaders of some kind, right? People who have stature or status. They've always been there. Now there's just a lot more of them because we have an international reach. I can follow an influencer in India as easily as I can follow one who lives next door. In terms of watching their videos, reading their content.
Yeah. Deciding to follow their ways.
Yeah, it's all right there. The entire world is literally on my doorstep with the internet and in my bathroom if I'm on the toilet even, right? I can go anywhere, anytime, and, be influenced. And that's the thing that I think has changed. It's not, it's enabled and empowered a lot of people to become more influential than they might have become otherwise without that opportunity. But believe me when I tell you, this is a lot of work. People don't rise to influencer status doing the work that we do just sitting around. It doesn't, that's not how this is. And so even the influencers that you might imagine are, really super slack, lazy people, they're not. Not if they are really influencers. So
I've been hearing a lot of theories about how the ease of access to everyone online has really declined the status of certain celebrities. Like they're not seen as these movie stars and mysterious anymore and interesting. It's like, oh no, you have access to them online 24/7. So
it's never meet your heroes.
Yeah.
Right. That's the problem. It's overexposure, right? Because somebody can only have that kind of in the clouds reality to you. They can only remain a symbol for as long as they're not human. And as soon as you start bringing them down to the human level where they really are anyway, and you find out about their divorces and their child abuse and their trauma and their problems and their weight loss issues and all of that, suddenly they're just another person. And they are reduced in status as a result of that. Denzel Washington also made a really, really, really smart point about this exact thing in a conversation with Steve Harvey that I heard about. Which is how you are exposed to people has everything to do with how you imagine or see them. And Denzel was pointing out that people have to go out of their home and go to a theater and pay money to see me, right? Denzel saying this, to see. And when they do, they see a huge screen with a huge face and a larger than life, soundtrack and everything else that creates this experience of this person. When they go and watch Steve Harvey, they sit on their couch, eat their chips, watch their TV, talk to their wife, scream at their kids, pet their dog. They're living their life, and Steve Harvey is part of it. So that also on a smaller screen, but also in the context of how it's consumed, has everything to do with how it is viewed or imagined or perceived.
Right.
I thought that was a really smart observation on Denzel's part, so it seemed timely to share that here. But that's an influencer, right? We talk about things that influence people. There you go. If you only saw me on a big screen at the theater and you had to pay to come see me talk, I'd be a very different person to you than the way we are, right? Here. So, yeah, it's not. It does mean that Denzel's not interested in being on TV, actually. That was kind of the point he was making. He came up on TV. I don't know if y'all know that. Back in the 80s, he was on a TV show called St. Elsewhere.
Oh, that's right.
I remember him on that, right? An old medical show because we used to watch it. And that's when I first saw Denzel Washington.
Okay.
Right? And then he got in the movies and he never came back. And I think he likes that movie star status. I think that's exactly his line, right? But again, that point, and remember how it used to be. I don't know, for some of you, I'm sure, the folks watching here today, remember how it used to be that movie stars were never in commercials, were never on TV.
They'd go to other countries maybe to do commercials.
Well, that's how it started. Is they went to other countries and got paid some big bucks for commercials. And then the American guys were, the English-speaking guys were like, well, shit, if he'll do it in Japan, then if we give him enough money, he'll do it here too, right? And that's how it broke open. But remember, it used to be that when you were a movie star, man, that's the only place people saw you, except maybe on a talk show or every now and again. And that was about it, Okay, anyway, we're pretty far afield, but not so much. We're talking about influencers, we're talking about celebrities, and we're talking about things that are influential to people, actually. And cults of personality are also something I think we're much more aware of in terms of that. I don't think we differentiate so well, though, on the difference between a cult of personality and a destructive cult, as I've been talking about it for years. I don't think we're so good at that. But we're working on it. Yeah, exactly. Steve Martin is now in a TV series that had podcasters in it. Exactly. The world changes, and that's really an interesting thing, isn't it? How it changes in ways you never imagined it would. And it certainly has changed in that regard.
Oh, yeah.
Okay, now we've covered the main stuff we were going to go over. Now we're coming up on the end, but if anybody wants to call in, Laura, thank you for those gifted memberships.
Yeah, thank you.
So awesome for the support. Excuse me. If y'all want to call in, now would be the time. If I see it pop up here, 984-214-4154. I very much would like to hear from you guys, and I'd love to hear, what you think about what I'm saying. Am I on? Am I off? Am I completely off the mark? I don't think I am, but I think that maybe there's more to this that I'm not thinking about. But I believe that we have never been in, kind of summarizing all of this. I really don't think we've been in a better place ever, worldwide, certainly in Western nations, to address or discuss cults as cults and get agreement that, hey, wait, maybe my daughter shouldn't be part of that. Maybe my son should. Maybe he should read this book, or maybe he should talk to you about this, or something. There's an awareness that these things are not just kooky, weird groups that have kooky, weird ideas that are mostly harmless. People now get that predators are out there, that they are preying, and that their kids could be there if they are not, if they don't get some education about that. And critical thinking education alone isn't going to do it. I used to think it would. It's not, because it doesn't even talk about cults. It doesn't even address it. And critical thinking is only as good as the context in which you are applying it. If everything looks and sounds and feels safe to you, your hackles aren't up, you're not going to be sitting there going, well, hang on, wait a minute. Nobody's like that all the time.
No way.
No one is. And if your emotions are being appealed to and you're going with the flow of it, you're not going to critically think about that. But if you have some concept of the red flags of what coercive control and cults do, manipulators, influencers, it's all the same. And if all of that could be taught or gotten across to people, different world.
Yep.
Right? Very different world. All right. Yeah. Thank you very much for all those memberships. That was awesome. Awesome stuff. Now there was. Oh, I need to tell you guys. Thank you on the John ATAC, on the comment on the ATAC thing that reminded me. Oh yeah. Let me address that question, Chris. This weekend, Sunday, 1:00 Denver time, John ATAC and I are doing a part 2. We're doing a continuation of our live stream a few weeks ago, where we started diving into the Scientology CS1, the first major education step that every single Scientologist does before they can get any auditing. And this is key to understanding how and why Scientology auditing actually does what it does. Because without this step done and done well, auditing doesn't work. Not even remotely the way it should. If you try to do a bunch of Scientology auditing on somebody without doing this education step, they'd be confused, they wouldn't understand what was going on, and they'd be like, fuck this. It's that important of a step. And so we've been walking through that, those materials, and we'll be doing that again on Sunday. Chris Wood asks, what do you think about MGTOW and the red pill? Does that stuff count as online cult stuff? It can. I actually, years ago, did a podcast about red pilling and about the male rights movement and the rights and wrongs, good and bads, pros and cons of that. Did a whole show about it. Can't look it up right this second, but it's on my channel. And I went into some detail. And as far as I know, my views haven't changed on that. And what I had to say in that podcast is still true. So you might want to check that out. It can absolutely, no question about it, get as culty as you want to get. The red pill guys, the incel guys, the people who get into these echo chamber communities about how horrible and awful women are, and how it would be better to not have women around. I mean, they can go to some pretty extreme places in terms of the thinking.
They just want women to be submissive and do whatever they want, kind of thing.
That's right. So this is so it's kind of a big. It can go very, very culty.
Oh yeah.
But it doesn't have to be, right? Again, remember that the cult stuff is about behavior, not belief. It doesn't really matter what the beliefs are. People can get nuts over it. They can get just as crazy over mint chocolate chip versus Rocky Road ice cream as they can get over, Israel versus Palestine. I mean, I hate to say it like that glibly, but it's true. Mm-hmm. I mean, if you've seen what I've seen in the last decade, you would know that's true. So it gets a little ridiculous, right? No, X-Science, actually, thank you. On the life repair, they don't usually go through the full CS1, but they do a lot of education anyway, which covers some of the stuff that's on the CS1. If they don't, the life repair doesn't usually bite as well either, right? You got to do that. Plus, there's also, in Scientology, we've never really talked about this, but there's clearing commands. Somebody is calling in. Let's pick up this call. Since I've had my phone on this whole time. Hello, is this Henny?
Yes, it is, Chris. Hi, Chris. Hi, Mel.
Hello.
Hey.
Hi, everybody in the chat. Hey, sorry, XI, about you being cut off with the life repair. We can always go back to that because I'm interested in that.
Yeah.
Yeah. Chris, I just wanted to let you know that, your teachings on coercive control and just everything that you bring, to us and to everybody really does make a difference. Even if you don't realize it, it has made such a difference in the way that people understand how coercive control really takes over a person, be it domestically, be it in a cult, and it reforms your way of thinking. And so, that can feel very frustrating and hopeless when you're in the middle of that. You know what I mean?
I do.
Things do. I know. I'm right there with you. But understand that everything, especially our growth, because we're human beings, takes really small baby steps. So I just, thought of a couple of things like gay pride. You didn't have that all the way,
That's right. That's right.
It was a disease. It was in the dictionary. I think I remember that. You know what I mean?
It was in the DSM.
Wrong.
No, you're not wrong. It was in the DSM as well as a psychiatric diagnosis of mental health, of ill mental health.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Of illness. Exactly.
Yeah. That's for real.
Now, imagine, Chris. Imagine, if you will with me, close your eyes. Imagine being someone like you in that time. Trying to explain that this is not what it is.
Right.
You know how you would feel? You would feel just as you feel at this point.
Right.
But it doesn't mean that those things don't change, because they have changed.
That's right.
Okay? And in a very, very big way, as did President Obama becoming president. I never thought in my lifetime, I never did, especially the way I was taught and I was raised, that was an impossibility that would never happen.
That's right.
Okay?
That's right.
Just as women, okay? That it was just not possibly happening, especially in the White House, okay? And it's amazing that it did happen. And it took a lot of people to stand up and, for a long time. So just know that, everything that you put in does make a difference. We very rarely can comprehend just how much we bring, okay?
Yeah.
To the world in a positive way when we're feeling overwhelmed and frustrated and things aren't going the way they should. So, you're a human being and you have to cut yourself some slack. You know what I mean?
I do. And thank you so much, Henny, for saying all of that. I really appreciate it.
I really mean it with all my...
I have a response.
What do you have?
I have a response. I was thinking today about something I was going to share with you guys, and your call is the perfect time to share it. I've lamented, I've complained, I've bitched, I've moaned about, I can't get everybody and I can't save the world and all of that. But I hit on something today that really changed my whole perspective on that. And so thank you for this call, because it prompts me here. I thought to myself,
you are so welcome.
I thought to myself, I'm reaching all these people. I'm having this positive effect on a lot of people. This has been proven to me over and over again. And I've got, almost 50,000 people as subscribers on YouTube. And isn't that wonderful? But, even if but I'm not reaching everybody. But you know what? The people I'm reaching are helped. And they're helped in a substantial way. Yeah. And it would be true that I'm not reaching everybody if I had 1 million people watching my videos. If I had 10 million people watching my videos, I could still sit here and lament, but I'm not reaching everybody. And that's just bullshit, right? I'm reaching who I'm reaching, and I'm helping who I'm helping, and I'm happy about that. And it's the help that matters. And so so thank you, Henny, for that.
Oh, you're so welcome. You're so welcome. And please know that this show far exceeds every other show that I have seen on the YouTube. I really mean that also with all my heart. Okay. No, seriously. Corinne and I were speaking about that before we got on the phone with you tonight. And just that, seriously, there is no other show like this. And how important it is and how it reaches and touches the people is really wonderful. And we are forever grateful for everything you bring.
Thank you.
With that, good night. I'm going to go back. I mean it, baby. Melissa, you look great.
Oh, thank you.
Hugs. Okay.
Bye-bye.
Okay, sweetheart. Night.
Awesome.
All
Okay. I got no other words. I'm done. I am out. That is awesome. And with that, we are going to wrap up.
All right.
Okay. Now I told you guys pre-recorded Q&A on Sunday. It's already done. I'm editing it right now. Okay. Already recorded. And podcast tomorrow. Okay. Dr. Daryl Ray comes back to my podcast. Some of you don't know who he is. He is the president of the Recovering from Religion Foundation. And he is pretty anti-religion, but he and I have a talk tomorrow that you will see about religious trauma, and especially childhood religious trauma and overcoming that, and why it's important to understand that. We are not on some big anti-religion screed in that show. We're talking about trauma, and it's something that I think people need to know a lot about. So that'll be on the podcast tomorrow. Q&A. Watch Monday for the After Scientology Straight Up and Vertical, and Sunday, 1 o'clock, my time, right here for continuation with John Atack. All right, guys. Did you have anything else before we wrapped up? Okay. Bye-bye.
Good night.